is meeting and then dispersing without conducting any business. Two sessions of the parliament were a washout because of GST, and this winter session was a washout because of demonetization. It prompted the Prime President of the country to practically lament this dereliction of duty. But are the parliaments better anywhere else? In England, in 2009, a commission was set up to study the working of the parliament, and the commission reported that the parliament is not working up to the level it's expected to work. With the result that the people are losing confidence in the efficacy of the parliament, and that leads to distrust of democratic system. Now, in some countries like in England, parliament is always in session, but not so in other countries. India and Canada suffer from this malaise much more than anybody else does. In India, Parliament meets hardly for 100 days in a year. That's it. Out of 365 days, it hardly meets for 100 days. And there are three sessions. There's a budget session, which starts mid-February and continues for about 100 days, but doesn't work all the time. Then there is summer session, mid-July to September, dates not mentioned. Normally 18th July to 17th of August, and Saturday, Sunday not working, all the holidays. And then the winter session. But India has rarely exceeded, Parliament has rarely exceeded 120 days of working. England, the House of Commons works for 233 days, more than double what the Indian parliamentarians work. And what about the Canadian Parliament? Are you prepared for the shock? In 2016, it worked for 131 days. And in 2015, it worked for 81 days. 81 days in 1 year. That is the record of the Liberal government's first year in work. Shocking. But then at the same time, terrible. Now imagine if you have an employee, and these are all public servants, paid by the taxpayer much higher than anybody else does get paid. And they have a right to give them an increase in salary every year without any hindrance. That's the only time possibly they work, all of them are present. And look at the Prime Ministers. Justin Trudeau's attendance record has been approximately average 38.9%. It was 37% in 1 year, 39% other, 38% in the third. But average comes to about 38. A Prime Minister who attends Parliament for 38% of the working days when the Parliament is meeting. In the question period, when he is supposed to respond, it's a sad commentary. It's a sad commentary on the system of parliamentary democracy and the responsibility shown by our parliamentarians. So whether it's India or Canada, the situation is the same. And imagine, apart from getting their salaries, these parliamentarians get accommodation in their capital. They get to maintain an office in their constituency, in their riding, as well as in the parliament. They get paid for traveling excellent travel, DAs, daily allowances, attendance allowances, and what not. And the result is they work for about 81 days in a year. Now imagine if you had an employee, if you work having an organization, an employee was coming only for 80 days or maybe even 100 days. Because the maximum the Canadian Parliament has worked is for 127 days. That was in 2014. And then 2015, as I said, 81 days. And this year, it's 121 days. So imagine if your employees were to work for 81 days, or 100 days, or 120 days. How would you feel? The first thing you would do is to give him the termination order. Here, unfortunately, you are deprived of that privilege as well. You cannot throw them out once you have elected them. And you elect them at that time with all the enthusiasm. And it's not only one party which is responsible. Don't think that I am blaming the ruling party. All the parties are equally guilty. The things were not much better when other parties were reigning, either in India or in Canada. And I'm taking India and Canada because we live in Canada, and I at least belong to India. And that's the only parliamentary democracy here. China and Pakistan and others, they do not come in that category. Pakistan has a parliamentary democracy, but it's always overshadowed by the military. Anyway, now the point is, I'm amazed that how and under what moral compulsion, apart from the legal compulsion, does the parliament not function when they are paid for that? Isn't that dereliction of duty? So what we need is a change in the parliament system. We need a drastic change. You see, democracy is basically the fulfillment of the ambition and the hopes of the people about the self-governance. They elect these representatives since with a large mass of people, each individual cannot participate. These are no longer small nation states. They are no longer countries. With this huge country, you have to have representatives who discuss the issues and decide what is good for all or for good for majority. And that purpose does not remain fulfilled if the representatives are not meeting regularly and not discussing regularly. The whole thing is in a disarray. In India, government takes an action and the result is parliament is paralyzed. In USA, they paralyze in a different manner in Senate. They go to filibuster. In England, the same situation happens. Why do they play ducks and drakes with the people's trust and the people's money? There is an urgent need to rectify the system. And some system can be that the parliamentary system should work around the clock. I mean, say all the working days it should be in session. You can reduce it to 200 days, I can understand it. I think House of Commons works for 233 days, which is very fair. Secondly, at present the agenda of the parliament is decided by the governing party. That is absolutely unacceptable. There should be a committee, agenda committee, which should have equal representatives from all the political parties, recognized political parties. I would mean For example, there are three major parties: the Liberals, the Conservatives, and the NDP. And in the agenda committee, there should be two representatives from each party who should decide. So, Green Party, of course, has only one member, two members. They need not be represented. In India, there can be four parties, but because they fight together, you can have equal number from the major three parties: the Congress, the CPI, and the BJP. The two members from each party. Six members decide the agenda. Secondly, at present, the parliament is called by the government. Different rules. In India, the president calls a meeting. The parliament starts with the address of the president. In US, in Canada, it starts with the address of the governor general till it's adjourned, signed, die. It should be summoned either in perpetual session, or there should be a clause which is there in many countries, and it's there in England as well. When 40 or 30 or 25, the figure can be decided, MPs demand a session, the session must be held. There's no reason that the session is held only when the ruling party decides. Let the agenda be an agenda decided by all the parties, and there should be a facility to call the parliament at the behest of the legislators belonging to any party. Thirdly, their salaries for the working days not done should be deducted. No work, no pay. When the parliament is not working, because the parliament has not been called, I'll still call it working, but for that duration they should be paid 50% of the salary. But when they force the non-working, as has happened in India, no legislator that day, including the Prime Minister, should not be paid any salary. And not only they should be paid any salary, even their allowances should not be paid for that period. And for the houses they are occupying, they should be charged a market rent. When the monetary hit is there, they'll become more responsible and more responsive to the needs of the people. You might call this revolutionary, you might call this excessive, but drastic diseases need drastic remedies. You cannot cure cancer by giving Tylenol. You cannot cure this disease that has set in the parliamentary system by palliative measures. You have to take serious action. And that is not by proportional representation, not by changing the system of voting. It is by ensuring that the parliamentarians once elected still remain accountable to the electorate. So first is the working is to be seen. A, it must meet more often. The people who are not attending it or who cause the vacation period should be 50% of the salary because of the public service. And the people who do not work should not be paid at all. Thirdly, most important, the right to recall or revote. When the people, the electorate is not satisfied, they should have a right to recall any MP. A number can be decided, say about 10,000 people sign up, or 5,000, or 2,000, or whatever the petition may be. At least the system can be that you have an ombudsman of the parliament. It cannot be the speaker. It can be speaker and two other persons, a tripartite, or it can be one ombudsman who looks into the petition, looks at the validity, pursues it, has consultation with the constituents and the people who have, and the public consultation. And in the if he is satisfied to begin with, if it's a large number, say 30,000 people, there must be recall, a revoting. But in case it's a small number, say about 1,000 people have signed a petition, then the ombudsman makes an inquiry and takes a decision to have a re-election. But the right of recall is essential. So these four minor steps, I'm still calling them minor because they would set in process. The process would be to regenerate this degenerate system and make the parliaments more effective, more responsive, more representative, and people would have some faith, some hope in parliamentary democracy, which today they do not have. They are convinced that the legislators are the worst possible specimens of humanity. They are concerned with the fact that their representatives, while representing them, are not doing their job. The first step should be to see that they do their job. Secondly, how well they do would be seen at the time of voting and elections. And that also there should be monitoring. The wide awake constituents, if they know that they have a right to recall, would keep these elected royalty in check. That way parliamentary democracy has some hope of survival. Otherwise, you would find it doomed, as dead as dodo. Let's see whether you and the authorities that we have a courage to take steps. If not, be prepared for some strong man to emerge and rule as a dictator.